Hello and welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. I am Chris, and tonight we journey to Soldier Island, a place where the sea stretches endlessly and the waves move in a gentle, calming rhythm. Here, 10 guests gather in a quiet house by the cliffs, guided by reflection, memory, and the soft, steady pulse of the ocean. Each step, each moment, reveals subtle patterns of life, inviting peace, introspection, and the quiet beauty of the island unfolding, carried gently by the whisper of the waves. Before we begin our journey tonight, let's take time to relax and let go of the stresses of the day. Here and now, there are no obligations, no to-do lists. By simply lying in bed with your eyes closed, you are already giving your body nourishing rest. Find a comfortable position and let your body settle. Close your eyes if you like and bring your attention to a quiet, expansive horizon. Imagine yourself sitting on a soft stretch of sand at the edge of the sea. The water lies before you, endless and calm, reflecting the soft glow of sunlight or moonlight. Tiny waves ripple across the surface, sparkling with gentle light. Notice how each wave rises slowly, curves gracefully, and flows toward the shore. Feel the gentle rhythm as it meets the sand, then retreats, leaving behind a smooth, glimmering surface. The motion is steady, effortless, and soothing. Listen to the faint, constant sound of the waves, a soft lapping, a whispering rhythm that repeats without end. With each wave, your body feels a little lighter, your thoughts a little quieter. Let your shoulders drop, your hands rest, your legs stretch out comfortably. The sand beneath you is warm and supportive, grounding you in this moment. Each wave brings a sense of calm. Each retreat carries away tension, as if the ocean itself is smoothing your mind. Look to the horizon and notice the vastness of the sea. It stretches endlessly, a serene blue or silver, meeting the sky in a gentle line that seems to promise quiet and rest. The light dances on the water, reflecting softly, casting patterns that shift slowly, peacefully. Breathe in the calm, breathe out any heaviness. Imagine the sound of waves echoing softly in your mind. each one a gentle reminder to release stress and sink deeper into comfort. Allow yourself to linger here, in this quiet space between sky and water, with the steady motion of the waves guiding you. Feel your body and mind become lighter, softer, as if carried by the rhythm of the sea, drifting ever closer to rest and calm. Now that we have taken a moment to relax and find peace and comfort in the place that we are in, let us begin our story. It began, as many curious things do, with letters. Each one arrived in a neat envelope, stamped and sealed, and posted to 10 lives scattered across England. The invitations were brief, courteous, and strangely precise, promising a stay on a remote island off the coast. Soldier Island, a place few had visited, yet somehow familiar in the imagination. Vera Claythorne received hers first. Sitting in her tidy London office, sunlight falling softly across the desk, she unfolded the envelope with delicate fingers. The invitation was formal, yet unassuming. A chance to spend a fortnight by the sea. Vera found herself curious, thinking that the salt air might ease the heaviness that sometimes lingered in her thoughts. A quiet adventure, she reflected, would be welcome. Justice Wargrave read his letter in the afternoon light of his study. Surrounded by the silence of books and the faint scent of polished wood, the invitation was precise, polite, and unlike any usual correspondence. He smiled faintly, amused by the careful wording, and placed it beside his spectacles. A short trip by the sea, he decided, would be agreeable. Dr. Armstrong received his during a break between patients. The note mentioned a discreet consultation on the island, and he accepted, curious but unhurried. The idea of fresh air, distant from the hum of the city, carried its own subtle appeal. Emily Brent's letter arrived with impeccable timing. She examined it carefully, straightening the corners and smoothing the paper. A few days of quiet contemplation, she thought, might do her soul good. She packed a small bag, her Bible, and her knitting, though she knew the tasks might remain untouched. Captain Lombard, Anthony Marston, William Law, and the Rogers couple received theirs in various corners of the country. Each reacted differently. Curiosity, amusement, mild excitement, but none questioned the invitation at length. The name U.N. Owen, printed neatly on the top, intrigued them, without revealing more than a subtle sense of mystery. By mid-morning the following week, the 10 had begun their journeys toward the coast. Trains slid smoothly through the countryside, fields and towns passing in a quiet, measured blur. Thoughts wandered to the coming days, the soft rhythm of travel soothing nerves and stirring anticipation. At the harbour, a small motorboat waited. The water lay calm, silvered by sunlight that scattered across its surface. One by one, the guests stepped aboard. The judge, the doctor, the governess, the soldier, the lady, and the others, whose names would soon be spoken softly in the hallways of the island house. The boat rocked gently as it slid into the tide, carrying them toward the distant silhouette of Soldier Island. The island emerged gradually from the mist. High cliffs rose from the waves, dark and solemn, yet touched with a quiet beauty that seemed almost dreamlike. Atop the cliffs, the house gleamed white, framed by a line of trees swaying in the coastal breeze. The mainland receded behind them, fading into a gentle haze of blue, while the air carried the tang of salt and the faint whisper of waves against the rock. For a time, the passengers remained silent, each absorbed in the rhythm of the water, the soft spray on their cheeks, the distant cry of gulls circling above. The boat glided over the sea like a leaf on a river. The world beyond the horizon slipping gently away, leaving only the hush of the approaching island. By the time the boat touched the shore, each traveler felt a subtle shift, a sense that the island waited not only for their arrival, but for something they could not yet name. The air was bracing, scented with salt and seaweed, and the wind carried a faint, refreshing chill from the cliffs above. And so, one by one, they stepped onto the sand, leaving behind the familiar world and stepping toward the unknown. Drawn by letters that promised a pause, a refuge, and a beginning that none of them could yet imagine. Behind them, the boat rocked gently, a silver streak against the calm water. The house waited at the top of the small rise, its white walls gleaming softly in the late afternoon light. A narrow path led up through a patch of low grass, bordered by scrubby shrubs and a few windswept trees that bent gracefully toward the west. It was a simple, yet elegant building, its windows wide and welcoming, reflecting the endless sky and the steady, slow-moving sea beyond. The guests climbed the path, one by one. Vera Claythorne paused to watch the water, the sea's gentle motion settling her thoughts. Philip Lombard strode ahead with a quiet confidence, though his eyes lingered on the waves as they broke softly against the rocks. Justice Wargrave moved slowly, deliberate, observing the house and the surrounding landscape with the careful attention of a man accustomed to noticing every detail. Inside the house was filled with the warm scent of polished wood and fresh linens. A fire burned gently in the main room, flickering in the soft light and casting shadows that danced lazily on the walls. The furniture was sturdy and well kept, the arrangement inviting conversation or quiet reflection. Each guest was shown to a room, simple yet comfortable, with large windows looking out over the water. Dinner was served soon after. The table was long and elegant, the light from the candles glinting on polished silverware and the edges of delicate china. Conversation was polite, gentle, and slightly tentative, as strangers began to acquaint themselves with one another. Laughter rose softly, mingling with the distant cry of gulls and the rhythmic lap of the waves against the cliffs below. The house seemed alive, but not in any threatening way. The floorboards gave just enough underfoot to remind one of presence. The ticking of a clock added a quiet, steady heartbeat to the room, and the windows framed views of the vast sea that stretched endlessly beyond the horizon. After dinner, as twilight deepened, the guests began exploring. Vera wandered along the hallway, noticing the photographs and paintings that adorned the walls, each a silent witness to another time and another story. Dr. Armstrong lingered by a window, watching the silvered surface of the sea, its constant motion gentle and hypnotic. Emily Brent sat quietly in a corner, knitting, while Anthony Marston leaned against a doorframe, his gaze moving restlessly from room to room. In each bedroom, a small framed poem rested on the wall, quaint and rhythmic, speaking of 10 little soldiers. The words seemed to ripple softly in the candlelight, mysterious yet unobtrusive, like a quiet song carried from a distant past. No one read them aloud. For now, they remained a gentle curiosity, part of the house's subtle charm. As night settled over Soldier Island, the house held them in calm embrace. Outside, the sea continued its slow motion, waves glimmering under the moonlight, brushing against the rocks with gentle patience. The wind stirred faintly through the trees, carrying whispers that might have been thoughts, might have been memories, might have been nothing at all. In that quiet hour, the house and the island seemed to breathe along with the guests. Here, for the first time, each person felt a small, unspoken anticipation, a sense that the days ahead would hold quiet discovery, gentle reflection, and a rhythm that only this place, surrounded by water and sky, could offer. And so, with the soft hush of the sea beyond the windows, the guests settled into their rooms, unaware that this serene beginning was only the first movement of a story that would unfold slowly, one quiet day and night at a time. The evening settled over Soldier Island with a gentle hush. Outside, the sea shimmered under the moon, its surface dotted with soft reflections, while inside, the house was quiet, but for the faint creak of floorboards and the occasional murmur of voices. The guests gathered in the drawing room after dinner, drawn together by curiosity and the desire to share the warmth of the fire. Conversation was light at first, casual remarks about the voyage, the island's beauty, and the comfort of the house. Yet, beneath the small door, each guest carried thoughts they did not voice, memories, regrets, moments that had quietly shaped their lives. As the fire flickered and shadows stretched across the walls, a soft, unexpected sound filled the room. It came not from any visible source, but from a device on a small table. A gramophone, its horn gleaming in the firelight. A voice spoke, clear but calm, as if reciting words that had always been waiting to be heard. You are all here because of choices you have made, the voice said. Moments passed, decisions that shaped the lives of others. All have left their mark. A hush fell over the room. The words were strange, yet the tone was neither harsh nor frightening. It was as if the voice had drifted across time and space, carrying gentle truths rather than accusations. Some of the guests glanced at one another, curiosity mingling with a quiet unease. Vera Claythorne felt her thoughts drift inward, recalling moments she had long kept tucked away. The words seemed to ripple through memory, urging reflection rather than judgment. Justice Wargrave, always deliberate, nodded slowly to himself, the careful lines of his face softening as he considered the message. Dr. Armstrong, leaning lightly against a chair, allowed the voice to wash over him, noting its strange serenity. Emily Brent, knitting idly, lifted her gaze and listened. The familiar rhythm of her stitches momentarily paused. Even Anthony Marston, usually so brisk and self-absorbed, found himself quiet. The calm insistence of the voice, drawing attention to thoughts he had not considered for some time. The gramophone continued, cycling through each guest's name gently, as though acknowledging their presence without demand. Each life holds its own weight, it said. Every choice has echoes. Here you may see them clearly, and perhaps find a measure of peace. No one moved. The fire crackled and popped. The only other sound in the room besides the soft, measured tone. Outside, the waves whispered against the rocks, in harmony with the voice, as though the sea itself echoed the invitation to reflection. After a long pause, the voice fell silent. The room felt lighter, though the impression lingered, a quiet suggestion that the guests' lives and the paths they had taken were threads in a larger tapestry they had yet to fully understand. In the silence that followed, the guests settled into chairs or lounged against the backs of sofas. Some closed their eyes, tracing memories in gentle recollection. Others simply watched the flickering fire, letting its warmth and the peaceful hum of the sea soothed their mind. It was the first night on Soldier Island, and though the rhythm of the waves and the soft glow of the lamps invited rest, each guest carried the voice's words inward, turning them over quietly. There was no fear, only a deepening awareness, a sense that the days ahead would be both gentle and revealing. And the island had its own way of teaching through stillness, sound, and reflection. And as the night deepened, the house seemed to hum softly with life, yet in a way that was welcoming rather than imposing. Each room held a faint glow. Each window framed the calm expanse of the sea, and the 10 travelers, together yet alone in thought, prepared to rest, guided by the quiet insistence of memories brought gently to the surface. Morning arrived quietly on Soldier Island. Pale sunlight spilling over cliffs and touching the gentle waves below. A house seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the sea, each room holding a soft warmth as the guests awoke. Breakfast was a calm affair, the clinking of cups and the murmur of conversation blending with the distant sound of water brushing against stone. Yet, beneath the polite greetings and small talk, a quiet curiosity lingered. The voice from the gramophone had left its mark, subtle and persistent, though its words had not been frightening. They had stirred reflection, and each guest now carried thoughts that seemed heavier, though unseen. Philip Lombard was the first to notice the small oddity. After pouring tea, he glanced toward the far side of the dining room, where one chair sat empty. A flicker of surprise passed across his face, quickly replaced by calm rationality. Perhaps the guest had stepped away, he thought. Nothing more. Vera Claythorne, arranging her silverware, looked up and caught the faintest movement in a corner. Shadows stretched differently than before, as if the room itself had subtly shifted during the night. She drew a quiet breath, feeling an odd mix of curiosity and expectation, as though the house held gentle secrets that would unfold slowly at their own pace. Outside, the sea glimmered under the morning light, waves curling lazily toward the shore. The sound seemed to echo softly through the halls, carrying a sense of rhythm and inevitability. The guests began to share their thoughts, mentioning the voice, the nursery rhyme in their rooms and the strange quiet that settled between the walls. There were questions, yes, but posed gently, with measured tones rather than urgency. By late morning, a subtle change was noticed. One guest's room, normally tidy and well-ordered, was found empty. A robe remained folded on a chair. A cup of tea untouched on the bedside table. No alarm was raised, no panic. It was simply quiet, as if the guest had drifted beyond the room, leaving only a trace of presence behind, like a soft echo carried by the walls. The guests exchanged glances, a silent acknowledgement of something unusual. Yet the tone remained calm, reflective rather than tense. Justice Wargrave remarked softly that perhaps the house had its own way of inviting solitude, a moment for one to wander the cliffs or the gardens in private reflection. The suggestion was met with nods of agreement. Throughout the day, the rhythm of the house continued. The ticking of clocks, the faint creak of floorboards, the quiet murmur of conversation. Guests explored corridors, opened windows to catch the bracing sea air, and paused at the edges of cliffs to watch waves curl over rocks, imagining the stories they could carry far out to the horizon. Each sound, each movement seemed imbued with purpose, though no urgency demanded action. By evening, the second disappearance had subtly made itself known. Another room, another robe draped over a chair, a book left mid-page. The guests felt the shift, noting it without alarm, as though the house had simply drawn them onward in quiet sequence. The nursery rhyme, seen in each room, seemed to mirror these changes, a line subtly missing here, a verse incomplete there. It was curious, remarkable, and strangely serene. As night fell, the remaining guests gathered once more in the drawing room. Conversation flowed softly about the sea, the horizon, and the beauty of the cliffs at sunset. The first hints of mystery remained, but the tone was calm, reflective, almost like a gentle puzzle unfolding. Outside, the waves glimmered under the moon, carrying the faintest echoes of footsteps and memories, and the house stood quietly, holding all within its walls, a place of reflection, of secrets, and of soft, unfolding revelations. The following morning dawned cool and silver, the cliffs glimmering with dew, and the sea stretched in quiet, endless arcs beneath a sky brushed with pale clouds. The guests awoke slowly, carrying with them the subtle awareness of the night's changes. Each room seemed to hold a memory of absence, and the house itself felt almost alive, as if it gently guided their steps. Breakfast was a quiet, measured affair. The air smelled faintly of toast and sea breeze. Conversation wandered lightly. Small talk about the voyage, the distant mainland, and the sun glinting on waves. Yet, in every mind, the memory of the previous day lingered. The rooms that had been found empty, the soft suggestion that the house orchestrated their movements with quiet precision. Philip Lombard leaned against the window frame, gazing at the silver water. "It's curious, the way the island holds us," he remarked, his voice low, thoughtful rather than anxious. "One does feel the rhythm of it, as if it knows our footsteps before we take them." Vera Claythorne nodded, adjusting the tea tray. "It does feel different," she said, calm yet purposeful, as though we are here to notice things we would otherwise overlook. Her words carried a gentle reflection, a soft acknowledgement that the island's silence and the sea's endless motion were teaching something subtle. Throughout the morning, the guests wandered quietly through the house and along the paths surrounding it. Emily Brent paused on the veranda, feeling the wind tug at her shawl, the gentle sway of trees responding in kind. Dr. Armstrong followed a trail along the cliffside, listening to the faint roar of the waves below, noting how the water seemed to whisper reminders of balance and rhythm. By midday, another subtle change was noted. One of the rooms, prepared carefully for a guest who had risen early, was empty. A teacup sat half full, and a jacket remained draped over the back of the chair. There was no alarm, no rush, only an unspoken understanding that the house guided these departures as naturally as the tide moved across the shore. The nursery rhyme, framed in each room, seemed to take on new meaning. Lines missing here, numbers dwindling there. It was a gentle counting of presence and absence, like the soft beat of a drum hidden in the waves. Guests spoke quietly of it, reflecting rather than questioning, accepting the pattern as part of the island's rhythm. Afternoon brought a change in the weather. A light wind rose, carrying clouds that scudded across the sky and brushed the surface of the sea into tiny ripples. It was not threatening, only a reminder of nature's subtle power. The way even calm water can hold change within it. The guests moved closer to the house, gathering in pairs or small groups, sharing memories, laughter, and quiet observation of the sea. Evening approached, the cliffs glowing softly with the sun's low light, and the house seemed to hum with a gentle anticipation. Conversations slowed. Guests found themselves lingering near windows, drawn to the steady glimmer of water and the hush of the approaching night. The rhythm of disappearances remained, soft and inevitable, yet strangely peaceful. Each absence left a space, pause, as though the island allowed time for reflection and the noticing of subtler truths. As darkness fell, the guests settled near the fire. Shadows stretched along the walls, yet there was no fear, only a calm awareness of the patterns emerging around them. Outside, the waves continued their quiet progression, curling and folding, echoing the gentle rhythm that now guided the lives of those on the island. It was clear, though unspoken, that the days ahead would carry further change, each moment revealing more of the island's quiet design. And though the unknown lingered, it came not with alarm, but with the soft, steady insistence of discovery, a gentle unfolding, like the slow, measured rise and fall of the tide. The island settled into its own quiet rhythm as the days passed. Each morning, the sun rose slowly over the cliffs, scattering silver and gold across the waves. And each evening, the horizon glowed with muted pinks and purples, reflected softly in the still waters below. The house, perched atop the rise, seemed to absorb this gentle cadence, its walls holding both warmth and silence in equal measure. The guests began to notice how the island itself seemed to observe them, not with judgment, but with an almost tangible awareness. Every gust of wind, Every soft ripple along the shoreline felt purposeful, as though the land and sea were quietly shaping the days according to some unseen rhythm. Vera Claythorne wandered along the veranda, her gaze following the waves that rolled endlessly toward the shore. The morning light caught each crest, sparkling like scattered gems, and the soft sound of water against stone filled her with a calm clarity. She paused to watch a gull glide gracefully above the surf, feeling that subtle connection between the motion of the bird, the water, and her own steady heartbeat. Philip Lombard explored the paths that wound among the cliffs, finding small alcoves where the sea could be seen in uninterrupted expanses. Each bend of the trail revealed new patterns of light and shadow, and he found himself reflecting not on the peculiarities of the house, but on the quiet truths that the island seemed to reveal. Patience, observation, and the gentle unfolding of time. Inside the house, Justice Wargrave moved with deliberate steps through the corridors. Each room seemed infused with memory, each window framing a view that encouraged reflection. He paused often, leaning lightly on a banister, noting the quiet symmetry of the walls and the patterns of sunlight as they shifted across the floors. The house felt very alive in a subtle way, not as a presence that intruded, but as a companion to thought and introspection. The rhythm of the disappearances continued, though still soft, subtle, and without alarm. The chair left empty, a book unopened, a jacket draped across a banister. Each sign suggested someone had moved quietly from one space to another, guided by the island's gentle hand. Guests noticed these changes with curiosity, discussing them in hushed tones and viewing them as part of the island's quiet lessons. Evening brought a soft hush over Soldier Island. The waves rolled steadily, curling and folding into the shore with a slow, hypnotic cadence. The wind brushed lightly across the house, carrying whispers that seemed more like reminders than warnings. Outside, the cliffs glimmered in fading light, and the faint smell of salt lingered in every room. By nightfall, only a few guests remained, gathered in the drawing room, speaking softly of the day, of the beauty and stillness of the sea, and of the odd, gentle pattern that the house continued to maintain. The rhythm of the disappearances had become part of the background, neither frightening nor urgent, only present, a quiet reminder that the island guided each moment with care. Vera looked toward the windows, watching the moonlight dance across the water, and felt a subtle sense of continuity. Every absence, every pause in the day's unfolding was part of a larger harmony, a balance between reflection and presence, solitude and gentle company, the ebb and flow of both water and thought. As the guests prepared for sleep, the house seemed to settle fully into its own quiet breathing, the waves continuing their endless journey along the shore. The island watched over them in its subtle way, patient, calm, and steady. A place where time, thought, and memory could drift peacefully together, and where each step forward unfolded naturally, like the soft, measured roll of the sea. The morning light filtered softly through the wide windows, scattering across the polished floors of the house. Outside, the sea stretched endless and calm, each wave curling gracefully toward the shore, a slow, unchanging rhythm that seemed to mirror the thoughts within the rooms. The guests who remained gathered quietly in the drawing room, each lost in reflection. The previous days had brought a subtle awareness, an understanding that their lives, their choices, and their memories were quietly mirrored by the rhythm of the island. Though no one spoke of fear, each sensed a weight that was not oppressive, but insistent, drawing their minds inward with gentle persistence. Vera Claythorne sat with her hands folded in her lap, thinking of moments she had long kept tucked away. She remembered decisions made, words left unspoken, and the small, quiet regrets that had lingered like shadows. Yet, in this place, surrounded by the sea's steady pulse, she felt not dread, but a soft invitation to acknowledge, to consider, and perhaps to forgive herself. Justice Wargrave spoke rarely, yet when he did, his words were deliberate and soft. The past is neither enemy nor friend, he said, but a companion that travels with us. Here we are offered time to observe it without distraction. His gaze lingered on the window, following the faint curl of a wave as it broke gently against the rocks below. Philip Lombard moved slowly along the veranda, listening to the whisper of the wind through the sparse trees. He watched the sun glinting on the water, noting how even a single wave could hold beauty and clarity in its simple motion. Perhaps the island is less about endings, he said softly, and more about noticing what has been. Dr. Armstrong, usually focused on observation and practicality, allowed himself to settle into the rhythm of the house. Each footstep along the hallway, each glance at the shifting light became a gentle meditation, a reminder that the world outside and within continued in its quiet, precise way. Even the nursery rhyme, still framed on the walls of each room, carried a softer weight now. Lines missing here, verses incomplete there. It was a quiet measure of presence and absence, a gentle accounting that asked not for fear, but for reflection. Each guest felt the pattern, understood it, and let it settle in their thoughts without urgency. As the day progressed, the subtle pattern of the island continued. Another room was found empty, another soft mark of absence left behind. A folded jacket, an untouched cup, a chair placed neatly at a desk. The guests noticed these changes without alarm, accepting them as part of the rhythm, part of the quiet instruction the island offered. By afternoon, a hush fell over the house. The sea outside shimmered in long bands of silver light, waves rolling steadily toward the cliffs, whispering faintly against the rocks. The wind carried the scent of salt and the faint rustle of leaves. In the quiet, the guests spoke softly of life, of choices, of lessons learned and regrets acknowledged. There was no blame, no accusation, only gentle awareness. As evening came, shadows stretched along the walls, the fire flickering softly in the hearth. The remaining guests moved slowly, lingering near windows or along corridors, tracing memories in silence. Each disappearance, each absence, had become part of the unspoken rhythm, a quiet, almost meditative lesson in reflection and balance. And when night fell fully over Soldier Island, the house and the sea were in perfect harmony. The waves curled gently along the shore, carrying the faintest sound of movement and memory. The island watched patiently, a silent teacher of calm, of insight, and of the quiet power of conscience, guiding each guest toward reflection toward understanding and toward peace. The days on Soldier Island moved with the soft, steady rhythm of the sea. Each morning, sunlight spilled across cliffs and waves alike, scattering gold and silver along the rocks. Each evening, the horizon glowed faintly, the sky painted in quiet shades of pink and lavender, reflected in the calm surface of the water below. Inside the house, the remaining guests moved with measured care. The rhythm of absences had become part of the island's pattern, a gentle accounting of presence and departure, each leaving a soft trace rather than alarm. The nursery rhyme, framed on the walls, continued its quiet work, a subtle reminder of the passage of time and the progression of days. Vera Claythorne wandered along the veranda, the breeze tugging softly at her hair. She paused to watch the waves curl and fold in endless motion, each one catching the light for a moment before retreating. In the slow repetition of their movement, she felt a sense of completion, a quiet acceptance of the lessons carried by the island, and the reflection that each step, each choice, had led to this serene present. Philip Lombard moved along the cliffside paths, his gaze following the shifting light on the water. Even in the fading day, the sea held a steady clarity. Each ripple, each curl seemed to mirror the order the house had gently maintained, a soft, deliberate rhythm that allowed room for thought, for reflection, and for understanding. Justice Wargrave remained in the drawing room, observing the way light fell across the floorboards and the subtle play of shadows against the walls. He noted the gentle symmetry of the house, the calm balance of absence and presence, and the soft inevitability of each passing hour. There was no urgency, no fear, only a quiet, deepening awareness of the way the island shaped experience and thought. The remaining rooms, now unoccupied, carried only faint traces of their inhabitants. A cup left on a table, a coat folded neatly, a chair pulled slightly from its usual place. Each detail spoke softly of movement, of time passing, and of the gentle logic the island maintained. The guests noticed these traces with acceptance, as one might notice the slow retreat of tide or the changing light of day. Evening fell, and the house glowed softly from the warm hearths and lanterns. Outside, The waves shimmered under the moonlight, rolling steadily toward the cliffs and retreating again in their endless dance. The wind whispered faintly through the trees, carrying with it the scent of salt and the faint rustle of leaves. Guests gathered one last time in the drawing room. Conversation was quiet and reflective, touching on memories, choices, and the unexpected clarity that solitude had brought. There was a gentle understanding that the island had guided them not through fear or urgency, but through calm observation, patience, and reflection. As the night deepened, the last light of the day faded from the horizon. The house stood quietly, a sentinel overlooking the sea, holding all that had transpired within its walls. The waves continued their slow, measured movement, each crest and fold a soft reminder of rhythm, continuity, and balance. In the calm hush of the island, each guest felt a quiet closure, a sense of presence, reflection, and acceptance. The soft lessons of Soldier Island, carried by the sea, the wind, and the gentle pattern of absence and return, had been absorbed, and as sleep approached, the house, the cliffs, and the endless silvered waves held them in serene harmony, offering a final, gentle calm before the rest of the night settled fully over the world. The final morning on Soldier Island dawned soft and pale, the sun casting a gentle glow across the cliffs and glimmering waves. Quiet hush lay over the house, as though it too was taking a last, deep breath before the day began. The remaining guests moved slowly, savoring the calm. Each room held traces of those who had passed quietly through them. A cup on a table, a jacket draped over a chair, the subtle echo of footsteps in the hall. These details were no cause for alarm, only gentle reminders of the rhythm that had guided them all, like the steady movement of the sea against the shore. Vera Claythorne lingered on the veranda, gazing at the horizon where sky and water met. The waves rolled endlessly, curling and retreating with measured patience. She felt a soft sense of closure, as though the island itself had taught her how to carry memory and reflection together without weight or worry. Philip Lombard followed the paths along the cliffs, noting the way the light touched each crest of water. The world felt expansive and orderly, balanced in its own quiet way. He paused often, breathing in the salt air, appreciating the calm clarity that the island offered without intrusion. Justice Wargrave moved through the drawing room, observing the soft shadows of the morning. The house had become a companion to thought, a place where absence and presence coexisted in a quiet pattern that encouraged reflection. Each room, each corridor, carried the imprint of life, gently lived and considered. By mid-morning, the boat awaited at the shore. One by one, the guests gathered their belongings, pausing to take in the view one last time. The cliffs, the house, and the endless sea seemed to watch them silently, offering no farewell, but a quiet acknowledgement of all that had transpired. Stepping aboard, each guest carried a sense of calm with them. The waves moved steadily beneath the boat, echoing the rhythm they had come to know, a slow, unhurried beat that mirrored both the island and the lessons it had imparted. As the mainland drew near, the house became a small, bright shape on the horizon, surrounded by the silvered sea. There was no fear, no lingering tension, only the soft, reflective understanding that Soldier Island had offered a space to notice, to consider, and to find quiet balance. And as the passengers sailed away, the gentle motion of the water carried them in peace, leaving the island behind, yet carrying its rhythm with their thoughts, a lasting calm that would endure far beyond the cliffs, the house, and the glimmering waves. I hope you enjoyed tonight's story, and that it has brought you a night of peaceful, restful sleep. Please join me again tomorrow night for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.